This man has an 8 to 10 year history of killing women all across the country.
An employee coming in just after 8 this morning made the horrible discovery. 4 employees of the Malibu Grand Prix stabbed to death.
She doesn't dispute that she stabbed her husband a staggering 193 times.
Harris's 16-year-old daughter witnessed her stepmother run the wheels of her Mercedes over her dad several times.
Police say the suspect may be responsible for the murders of at least 6 women.
Welcome to the season finale of The Evidence Room. For this episode, we're taking you into Acres Homes, a pocket of Houston that was formed after World War I when homes were sold with an acre of land, hence the name. We're about 10 miles outside of downtown, but there's still enough wide open spaces out here. It has a rural feel. Unfortunately, in 2006, serial predators used these isolated pockets as hunting grounds. It would take Houston police about 2 years to crack these cases, and when they first started, they thought they were looking for one predator. They later realized that was not the case.
You know, when you asked me about doing this, I knew it would be very, very complicated because the storyline can get confusing because so much was happening, and if you don't say that part, you would not understand how did y'all get over here? What brought you on? That's how confusing and how stressful this investigation was.
Crime scene after crime scene after crime scene. Reports of the so-called Acres Homes serial killer on the loose had this community afraid of what he could do next.
It was frightening because I have mother, daughter, and family in the area.
For Merrick Burton, it meant a lot of nights wondering and worrying.
When you have a rapist of that nature running around, you want to make sure that he's off the street so he won't hurt anyone else.
Talk about what were you doing at the department and how did this come to you?
You know, homicide was a large division, and that means you had the murder squad, you had family violence and sex crimes. When I became a mom, I said, listen, I'm gonna go to sex crimes, 8 to 4, weekends and holidays off. I kept getting these reports, and remember, we got several squads. The sergeant every Monday put down a report, and I said, sexual assault, Mansfield, church. Call, couldn't reach the victim. The next week, get another case. It's almost like through a spirit, I kept getting the same Mansfield address each week. The third week, after not being able to find any of the complainants in the case, I get a tap on my shoulder, and it was from homicide saying, didn't you have some sexual assaults behind a church on Mansfield? I said, yes, I did. I'm still looking for my victims. He said, well, we found a body. And that was the impetus to how the Acres Home serial killer started.
The cases that you kept getting on your desk,
yes.
Who were these people?
They had lived high-risk lifestyles. After I did my background on them, 2 were African-American females. I called mom. She said, baby, I don't know where she's at. I sent letters. She said, baby, I got your letter, but when I find my daughter, I'll let her know that you're looking for her. So the complainants were very, very difficult to find. When you pulled up their criminal history, like we do in any of our investigations to try to get a background, you could see a pattern. And that pattern was, they rarely made reports. So if they did make a report, whatever they experienced was very traumatizing because the behavior of an individual who chooses that lifestyle, so it's just a part of the job. But for these 2 young ladies who played a very valuable part in our case, that means when we found them, we were able to get a description. We were able to get a DNA sample. We were able to go and have her participate in a sexual assault kit. So all of that played a large role to the homicides.
The attacks must have been particularly vicious for them to come forward and call police.
Yes, it was blitz. It was just a blitz attack. Many times they would say, yes, I will get in the car with you. And yes, I agree to do whatever the action was, but it was horrible. It was horrible. Horrible enough for them to dial 911.
Is this where you found a body?
This is where Pamela Goss' body was located, yes. She was the first homicide victim in the Akers home case. She was all the way in the back, and they were actually having a service here, like on the weekday service. And one of the deacons walked out and he saw blood. And he followed the trail of blood and said, "Oh my God, there's a body."
She was my baby. 50 years old, but she was my baby.
When her family talks about Pamela Goss, there's still a tangible sense of loss 3 years after she was killed.
Not for me, it still hurt just as bad. It still hurt just as bad.
Goss was murdered April 2nd, 2006, stabbed to death over and over, her body left behind this church for the pastor to find.
I was horrified because it seemed to be like someone just threw a human being around like an old fender of a car.
What made you think that Pamela Goss was the start of something, not just an isolated incident?
When we interviewed the living victims, in other words, this was a pattern that was starting. All of these cases had so many similarities, we knew that we were possibly looking at the same offender by description, by the vehicle, all of that. And based on what we obtained from our living victims, we knew that this was an overkill. This was something that was not normal. This was multiple stab wounds. If you were going to actually hurt someone, why do it to that extent? Then we started looking back at other homicides. And that's when we found out, oh, listen, we had a young lady that was in another area that was listed as a possible natural death. And that was on Zebra. And we said, well, she's nude. She's laying here with no clothes on and her feet are clean. So how did this occur? So I reopened that case. I said, unless she levitated it.
Right, because if it was truly natural, then her feet would be dirty because she would have to have walked to that spot.
She would have to walk to the spot and say, you know what, I'm gonna pick this spot. I'm gonna not have no clothes on and you ain't gonna find my clothes. And I'm just gonna float in the air and land. Jasmine Clark.
And where was Jasmine in relation to this?
Jasmine was on 6,000 Zebra, so it's not that far. This is all this same area.
Okay.
All of this is in the same area.
Okay, so was that before or after Pamela's murder?
So we found her on January the 19th, 2006, and remember, it was April of 2006 when this case was here.
Okay, so Jasmine was before Pamela technically, but it wasn't put together until...
Exactly.
So then did you just start looking at other...
We started looking at other cases, and we started mapping it out. But it was the living victims and the ones who experienced the sexual assaults that started giving us a better description of who we were looking at. They gave us a possible vehicle that we should be looking at. But we kept getting two different type of vehicles. One said, this is a guy with a red truck with a Superman sticker on the back. And the other one was a Pontiac, a grayish Pontiac. So like, well, maybe we're dealing with two suspects working the same area at the same time and doing the exact same thing. And it was.
Okay, but they didn't work together.
They didn't work together, but they will... Look, let's look at the area. And let's look at the area back in 2006.
She was only 21 and trying to get her life back on track after going through legal problems with drugs. But before she could, Lakita Stubblefield became the latest victim of what police fear is a serial killer.
She'd been missing for a couple of days and then all of a sudden she come up dead. Just want to find out what's going on and try to bring everything to justice.
Police say the suspect may be responsible for the murders of at least 6 women whose bodies have been found in or near the Akers Homes area in Northwest Houston. Investigators say most of the victims had drug problems or were prostitutes.
lot of vacant lots here, a lot of tall weeds, a lot of places to hide. Was that a hindrance back then?
It was not only a hindrance, but it was also a crying point. And I say that is because immediately after we brought this to light, that in this area, it's being denied the complimentary things that is given to others. And so we had a day where we brought out mounted patrol, we brought out volunteers that helped clear the area. We brought out the city of Houston with their dumpsters and their tractors, and we made it a unified effect.
Just because these bodies are found in Acres' home, and these women may have questionable lives, that this perpetrator will not show up in your neighborhood if he's not quickly called.
Leaders in Acres Homes increased the reward money for information leading to an arrest and the filing of charges to $20,000 and issued a firm statement to whoever is behind these crimes.
This is not where you will rest. We will seek you out. We will find you. And when we find you, we will prosecute you.
These guys preyed on the fact of, one, if you scream, they ain't gonna hear you. If you scream, they're not gonna care. And if you scream, I'll kill you. So when you are working in those type of dynamics, listening to these young ladies who didn't chose, I think the lifestyle or the environment led them through that pathway, but they're still human. And we still treated them as human beings. They got their rape kits. We got, scientific evaluations conducted. We sat down and we got a complete check of their body just to make sure that nothing else was occurring. And that's how we end up making a determination that we had 2 offenders in the exact same area.
How many victims in total do you believe were out here from that time period?
At least 6 or 7 that homicidal, and multiple as it related to sex crimes. I think our lightning is getting ready to come. In one case, one of the females was found across from a residence because her dogs ran out. And as a result, this dog comes back with what appears to be part of a femur, part of a leg. And so the homeowner was like, whoa, this doesn't look right, so they go across the street and of course they find a white female who obviously was murdered. But when we looked in the trees above us, we saw condoms. And so that spot had become so popular that the minute they finished their acts, they would flick the condom in the tree. So we had a tree full of condoms. And we ended up collecting maybe 12 or 13 condoms from the top of the tree.
Did you at first think there's just one person out here, or did you think multiple?
We had no idea it would be multiple people. You have to understand the element of the environment. And so when you say we found someone that was deceased and it looks as if it was natural causes, we know we have a lot of drug activity in the area during that time. But this was different. And that difference came from when the patrol officers came out and said, no, this is not something, this is a brutal, brutal, brutal death. And so that was the foyer to us knowing that we probably have something that is not normal within the neighborhood. It was brutal. What the females experienced, they should not have gone through it. We're talking multiple stab wounds as it relates to just our first victim, which was Pamela Goss. I remember going to the medical examiner's office, and the ME said, "Detective Shorten, I'm just going to stop counting because that's how many stab wounds that we have. So we're just going to use the word multiple."
Did you have many witnesses, given the way these women were just found in vacant lots and wooded areas?
No, not really. And you have to understand the dynamics of what we were experiencing. We knew that our complainants had a history. And if you go back and you try to speak with, family and friends or even neighbors, they would say, yes, she walked the street. So these are very high-risk victims, high-risk complainants, where their disappearance would not be a norm.
Okay, so nobody reported them missing,
No.
They just were found.
Exactly. We were able to gain information on our offenders by the individuals that were left alive. So the sexual assault victims played a large role in solving the homicide cases. It had to have been bad because their normal behavior was prostitution. And so if you get a complainant that has that line of work that they classify themselves as, and they dial 911, speak to an officer, get a rape kit, that confrontation had to have been alarming to them. One of our complainants was sexually assaulted, and one of the things she said he had scales. And for us, doing our comprehensive interrogation or interview with her, you talking like scales, like he had a skin problem? And she said, no, scales. So I started Googling, and I said, does it look like this? And it was the justice scale. And that's...
So a tattoo?
It was a tattoo of a scale.
Okay, how many of the victims reported getting attacked by a man with the scales of justice?
We had a couple. We did. So we knew we had something consistent. We knew we were dealing with an African-American male, bald head. And so we went to every roll call. I mean, if it's 2 shifts, an evening shift, we were at every roll call.
You mean police roll call?
Police roll calls, because we were passing out the sketch of what the complainant provided us. That was all we had, an arm with a scale. That's what she provided.
So that's what you had to go on?
That's what we had to go on. And so we're talking now, speaking with every African-American male who had that on their arm, which is Libra. So of course we had quite a few.
So you had multiple people with the scales of justice.
We had multiple people
tattooed on their arm.
Exactly.
I think I read you and your partner just drove around with DNA swabs.
Yes, sir.
Talk about that.
Well, I went to Walmart and I got just a little handle case, and I put files in there, and I put the consent forms, and we had the packages of swabs, the containers that it went in, and our gloves. And that was our traveling kit. You have to understand something. The dynamics of recognizing that you were investigating not only the sexual assaults, you were also investigating the homicides. And with that left us with multiple complainants that are living and those that we know that are deceased. So with that, we knew we needed to gain access through consent to those males who fit that standard.
So did you just drive around in anybody that kind of fit a description you got a swab from? Or?
No, we had a database, and that database provided us with those suspects that probably fit that standard. So we had an idea of those who were sex offenders and those guys who may have had the scales that were identified by public, because we had a tip line as well. But we also did so by the leads that we were getting. We had hundreds of leads that were coming in through our tip line, a lot of Crime Stopper tips. And so those tips gave us that probable cause to move forward with that individual.
Did you think at the time that, okay, the person sexually assaulting the women is also the same person killing the women?
We had no idea. And I hate to say that we had to come to a point in the investigations where we looked at each other and said, we're dealing with two different people. Because some of the complainants described the person as being a lighter complected, and some described the person as having a Domino's pizza uniform on. And so we're like, wait a minute, we're dealing with two different things, and we had to come to that realization that we had two offenders working in the same area at the same time, and they did not know each other. In other words, they were not partners.
What are the chances of that?
That's unbelievable.
How many DNA swabs do you think you collected over that period of time?
Wow, it was between 70 and 100.
Did you get any hits on the DNA?
Yes, we did.
Was it all at once, like, aha, bing, 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 it matches all these different crimes, or?
It took time. It took time. You have to understand, information that came from the victims that were living, so the complainants that were living. And we had one in particular who we found, and we did a diagnostic interview on her. And she said, when he finished, he took my sweater and he cleaned himself with my sweater and threw it back at me. And we were like, what? Yes. I said, do you still have that sweater? She said, yes, I do. It's sitting in the corner of my apartment. That's that door. So taking that sweater, testing it against all of your swabs that you've gained, provided us with a profile. And so with that profile, that goes into the database, and we end up getting a CODIS hit on one of our dead girls and that sweater, which led us to an offender.
When did LaMarcus pop up on your radar?
We never were able to identify him by name. The only thing that we were capable of doing was to put his sketch out, but he identified himself when he changed locations. So when he changed locations from Acres Homes, he also did what he called a cooling off period. And that's a standard for serial offenders. They're like, dude, why did you stop for 6 months? And they call it, the FBI calls it a cooling off period. I had to work. He was still working. He still had a family, nice apartment, but he grew his hair out. And so his hair went from short to little twist. And then he put a little cap on his head. So now he goes from the LaMarcus McWilliams, with short hair, to now LaMarcus McWilliams with longer type hair. And this time, I'm not going to offend anymore in Acres Home. I'm now going to offend in 7th District, or Northeast Houston.
Stay strong, sister.
He had a victim in his car that he picked up. He took her to a vacant area in a wooded area over off for Homestead.
In the archives, there's pictures of this silver Pontiac Grand Am. That was his car.
That was his car.
And there was pictures of this wooded area that backed up to like an 18-wheeler.
Exactly. That was that area. The sexual assault occurs there, and because she's nude. When the acts are over, now it's time for me to leave. I can't, because now I'm stuck. When his car got stuck in the mud, He told her, well, I get in the driver's seat and push the gas while you push the car.
So he made the woman that he had kidnapped try and push him out of the mud.
Naked and bound. And when that didn't work, the trunk is open, he puts her in, closes trunk, walks across the street to the Texaco and finds this good Samaritan that actually was there gassing up his big dually truck. He said, sure, dude, I'll help you.
He asked the guy, can you push me out?
And he came, and then as he's doing, he heard the knocks. And he said, oh man, don't worry about that, ain't nothing. He said, no, something's not right. Something's right now. That's when the trunk kicks open.
She's able to kick the trunk open?
And get out, runs to the neighbor's house. He dials 911. The neighbors are dialing 911 while LaMarcus is in the woods. So when officers respond, they say, I see somebody ducking, peeping through the woods, and they order them out. And I know I'm gonna go all the way back when I said we made roll calls to every officer. And we went to all the roll calls, and we saturated them with that flyer, because all we had was this and a sketch.
The scales of justice.
So as LaMarcus was wanted for some traffic, so as he's arresting him, he was like, hold on. He said, and he ran and got his sketch, but by this time, he had the tattoo artist to put flames on the scales.
So he knew that was out there.
He knew it was out. So he put flames on the thing, and the guy kept saying, no. So he immediately calls sex crimes. He said, I'm not trying to be funny, but I think I have your guy. And that's how it all started.
So essentially, LaMarcus's undoing was this one woman who escaped.
Yes.
There was no one to blame until now. Police say 33-year-old LaMarcus McWilliams' DNA connected him to Goss's murder and 5 other sexual assaults, including a 13-year-old back in 1996. He was arrested last month after police say he raped an 18-year-old and then got his car stuck.
I don't know how he got away with that, for so long.
Police also say his DNA linked McWilliams to the death of Jasmine Clark, and he's the primary suspect in other bodies found in Akers homes between 2006 and 2007. Police say he's denying any involvement, but the community is breathing a collective sigh of relief.
Believe it or not, I'm actually happy because it put the people at rest out here.
Police showed us suspect sketches and pointed out how similar McWilliams' pictures look. They even showed a sketch of a tattoo witnesses remember him having of the scales of justice, and show McWilliams having the same one. Goss's mother says she'd like to ask one question about her baby's death.
I'd ask him why.
Today's trial for LaMarcus McWilliams came to a halt. According to the judge, the complaining witness has not been located by the state to begin testimony, and until they find her, there's no trial. His attorney, Eric Davis, left frustrated. He says this will be a setback for his client. McWilliams, seen here back in September of 2009, appearing before a judge for the first time, is accused of murdering 50-year-old Pamela Goss. Police say his DNA connects him with Goss's murder and a series of rapes, including the sexual assault of a 13-year-old in 1996.
So he's in prison for life for sexual assault, aggravated sexual assault of the last young lady.
Exactly.
He was charged with Pamela's murder.
It was used in punishment.
So, going out on a limb here, I'm assuming the prosecutor went, well, his DNA was found on Pamela, but all that means is they had sex, and Pamela is a prostitute. Here we have eyewitnesses,
Exactly.
We have like a first-hand account.
Exactly.
So this is the stronger case.
This is a stronger case. And even though this was the most brutal case, not minimizing the sexual assault, but the degree to reach that, through a trial, it can be a little complicated at times.
But it was used at punishment.
It was used in punishment.
So do you feel that she got her justice?
Yes, beautiful family, just a beautiful family, and they walked with me through that whole process, and but they are very satisfied with the fact that the offender that caused the death of their loved one is serving time for it.
Before you got on LaMarcus, did you get other hits on the DNA?
Yes, we did. Again, when we go back, we knew we had other offenders because the descriptions were different. When Willie Blanca, not too far here in Acres home, was found in the ditch, we went to Greens Point to talk to her mother to find out, can you give us a history? And as we're in Greens Point, we were approached and said, y'all from homicide? Like, yeah, okay, y'all must be here about the girl under the bridge. It's like, no, we're here on something different. Said, no, what about the girl under the bridge and the girl that's been burned? I was like, what are you talking? So those cases were already working. Those were cases that were not solved. And because they outcried to us and they led us to a boy by the name of Baby Boy.
That was the street name.
That was the street name. And so we ended up finding out that Baby Boy was Brian Davis. So interviewed Brian, took DNA samples from them. We got a court order to get a DNA sample from him, doing all of the things that we did just on us pausing Acres home and now trying to figure out, well, what's the girl under the bridge, which was Candace. And so Candace's case was already worked by another homicide team with no leads until we established Baby Boy. And then that's when we ended up finding out that Baby Boy was associated with Candace's case.
So Brian Davis matched Willie and Candace.
Exactly.
Even though the Candace and Willie murders were in two different areas and essentially had nothing to do with one another.
Yes, and we never associated Brian with Acres home. That's what made the investigation so tedious, because here we are finding a body in this area where we know we have an active serial that's going on. You have to go now and do a follow-up on the person that you just discovered who lived in the Greens Point area. And as we are there, new information comes in on cases that are totally different from the ones that we're working. So we worked them. And we end up putting Brian Davis in jail on a case from the county. So the young lady that was burned was the county's case.
Talk to me now about Junious Bilford, because was he connected to any of the murders or just assaults?
He was a sexual assault. Do we feel that he may have been good for some? Probably so. But Bilford would pull up with a Domino's pizza box in his seat. And of course, remember we talked about high-risk victims. Well, of course they're walking, they're hungry. They're gonna get in a car because that's, in their terms, a trick. But you have a pizza as well, and that just makes it probably a little bit more complimentary to them. And that's how we were able to get Bilford identified, because we had two separate complainants providing information on two similarly looking black males. But one would say, no, he had a little beanie cap on his head. So if you remember, multiple sketches were a suspect without a beanie cap and a suspect with a beanie cap, because we were getting two different descriptions, not knowing we were dealing with two separate individuals.
Okay.
Yes.
So DNA matched. So DNA also matched Bilford.
Exactly.
After those three arrests, though, did the murder stop?
It stopped. There was nothing else associated with that form of activity, with that type of behavior. Now, the element of the community, of course, you're going to have those issues, but nothing that, and we've searched and searched and searched, and there has been absolutely nothing of that effect.
That matched those types of attacks?
Not that behavior, no.
It would have been easy for the department to have made these cases a lesser priority, given the lifestyle of these women. But that didn't happen, did it?
It didn't happen, no. I remember while I was in sex crimes, getting a report, and it gave this address, and it gave a sexual assault that occurred. And then, of course, you're going to pull up the criminal history of that person who's making. That's just a part of your investigation. And you see the multiple arrests for prostitution. Yeah, you can quickly formulate that opinion. But why would I now make a report? And I didn't make all of these prostitution cases that I see that you have. Why, when I run you as a complainant, I don't see any other reports? That's a red flag for us. That means something was out of the ordinary to make me say this went beyond a change of money for a service. This was to a whole different level. And it's sad that we have to think like that, but you don't minimize anyone who makes a report at all. And a lot of times doing this case, we search for those who did not make a report, and we made one for them. Whether or not it matched any of the offenders that we were looking at, it's just the mere fact that we were not only providing a service, but providing that counseling that you don't have to accept this action. Just your body, but you don't have to accept being abused, or hurt or threatened. And so we encourage them that there are alternatives.
Every life matters.
Every life matters. Yes, sir.
And that's it for season 3 of The Evidence Room. As always, thank you so much for joining us for all of these past episodes. We're already starting to work on ideas for season 4, so if you have a case that you'd like us to profile, please send us an email or call our tip line at 713-223-TIPS. And as always, you can get caught up on all past episodes of The Evidence Room by downloading the KPRC 2 Plus app. You will find it free to download in both the Apple and Android app stores. So until next season, be safe and take care of yourselves. Bye.